So I thought I would start off our conversation with this notion that I learned probably 3 or 4 years ago in my own coaching relationship with my mindset coach. And he said, you can't have a relationship with other people that you don't first have with yourself.
Yeah.
And I really took that nugget of truth, that truth bomb, that law to heart and really started doing internal work. Because at the end of the day, as a father, as a husband, as a business owner, all of that, the better I'm at relationships, the better I'm going to be in all of those roles. You know, even in business, if I'm selling something, whether it be a house, if I'm coaching somebody, there's this other notion that says you can't have influence on somebody else unless you're first influenced by them. And the only way that I'm going to be influenced by other people is if I can let my own guard down, let my own ego to the side, and then really connect true self to true self, right? So I kind of wanted to just start our conversation off with those two statements and then let you kind of take it from there and go with it.
Yeah, no, that's a great place to start the conversation. And a lot of the work that I do as a psychotherapist, I work with couples, and often I'm working with couples who have been through a lot of other paradigms of therapy, and most of the time also there's been betrayal. So my little niche specialty is with couples where there's been discovery of betrayal after a long period of time. Work with a lot of people with compulsive behaviors that lead to betrayal. We'll just leave it at that. But here's where it connects to that. A lot of them have been through lots of recovery work or therapy or whatever, where it's very self-focused, but what it doesn't take into account is the mutuality that you're describing in your question. Relationships are by nature mutual. There's a mutual direction and a mutual influence there. And here's the other thing. My own personal growth happens in relational contexts, even if it's with a therapist or a coach or whatever, some group, like, you know, a networking group or mastermind group or whatever. We grow in relationships. So relationships enable our individual growth. Our individual growth sets us up for what we can handle in terms of relationships and relational growth. And it's so true. I can't have a relationship with others that I don't have with myself, because the basis of relationship with others is empathy and something called mentalization, which is my ability to sort of take their perspective. I can enter into this state of not just considering myself, but I can imagine their experience, and in imagining their experience, I'm then able to actually engage with ideas and build ideas and create something, co-create something with this other person that I couldn't come up with myself. And there's a whole bunch, and we can geek out as much as you want to the neurobiology of that and all of that, but yeah, it's fundamental to how we are wired as human beings.
Man, I love that. You said something which sparked a memory of another little nugget of truth that I live by.
Yeah.
People, I gotta go deep in my memory to articulate it exactly as it is, but most people are too attached to the memories of their past rather than the imagination of their future. And so they stay stuck.
Yeah.
And I really took that law, if you will. I don't know what these things are called, but law of nature. And man, I really went deep with that, because I think if we make decisions today based on the memories of our past, then we really don't change that much, right?
Yeah.
Because we're rooted in who we used to be, and who we used to be keeps us with who we are, right? And then it's just like this conundrum. But if we can find space to imagine this future and sort of suspend all of the things that anchor us to who we were, then we're able to then go there in our minds first and believe it. And then we can start to behave and let the vision of our future pull us into that reality.
Right.
And so if we can't do that for ourselves, how then can we imagine the experience of the other person in which we're in a relationship with?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, we often think that that our identity, which identity itself is an interesting thing to think about. It's something that doesn't really exist until you think about it, like as a concept, and then you think about what is my identity, and then it begins to take shape in these concepts and these ideas. But often humans are wired to where we fundamentally consider our identity something that is sort of set. It's established, and we're kind of passive in terms of who we are and how we see ourselves and what our identity is. So I've been formed, right, which is a past tense, passive verb. And then even if we want to work on ourselves, often we use language like, I need to figure out who I am. I need to discover who I am and go inward, like as if that's suggesting that there's some real me buried down in there. And I've got to,
Mm,
like a miner, go down, descend into the depths to find the real me. And I don't know, am I allowed to use a tiny bit of profanity on this call?
yes,
I call
yes, we want to be
bullshit
real.
on that. I call bullshit on that. And the reason is because we we can choose who we want to become. We can choose. So when I'm working with clients, I don't talk about finding yourself. I talk about deciding who you want to be. Finding yourself is this sort of navel gazing perspective that turns you inward and can actually end up increasing anxiety, lowering feelings of life fulfillment. And it's got all, it's fraught with problems. But what I can do is I can say I have a vision for who I want to be. I have these values that define the character that I want to have. And maybe I do in part possess that now, but I want to grow in that. And now I can look forward and I can choose in alignment with those values. And as I do that, I am literally transforming and becoming more of that person, even at a neurobiological level.
I love it. I want to geek out a little bit. So go a little deeper, like that neurobiological level. Tell me
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. So, okay. So every single belief, thought, feeling, or behavior that we have has a literal, physical, neurological substrate that is associated with it. So every feeling, every thought, every belief, there's a pattern of electrical firing in the brain, and then there's a correlate to that down all the way through our bodies in the nervous system, that are the means by which we experience that in the body. I'll put it that way. Okay. So pair that with something called Hebb's law. Hebb, H-E-B-B, he was an American neuroscientist, early 20th century, and he coined this phrase or discovered this law that's been now called Hebb's law. Neurons that fire together, wire together. And maybe you or others have heard that. Neurons that fire together, wire together. So the more neurons fire together, the more I activate a certain neural pathway, the more wired, the more entrenched that pathway comes. So the more I believe something, think something, feel something, do something, the more likely I am to believe, think, feel, and do that in the future. It's like treading. It's like I used to ride horses every summer. I'd go to Montana and I'd ride horses for a week through the mountains. And there were these little, tiny little trails through these tall weeds and these big fields on the sides of mountains where horses had walked for, generations, and they're so well compacted. They're just so well established that, they're there. In the same way, when I think, feel, believe, do something over and over and over again, that becomes this really well-worn pathway. But through intention and effort and focus, I can break out of that. I can begin to establish a new neural pathway. And the intention, effort, and focus is necessary because I'm going to have to do it again and again, and I'm going to have to expend that energy, and I'm going to have that focus. But it's kind of like cutting a new trail. When I was growing up here in East Texas, we had some land where we'd go hunting and stuff, and my dad hunted on that land with his dad, and there were trails cut through the woods. And I can remember cutting new roads and him saying, listen, take the new road, not the old one. Why? He wanted to let that grow up and the new one get more packed in. And it works the same way with our neural pathways. So with intention, effort, and focus, we are literally changing the structure of our brain, and that can become the more well-worn path.
I love the trail metaphor. That's beautiful. That's so
Yeah.
good. I mean, I can relate to that. So I have some questions about that. So what does the rewiring unlock? What is the benefit or what happens? So once we rewire, I know we're talking about neurobiology, so it's energy. I think is that
Right.
what you said. So does it become easier? Does that allow us to do it better? What happens as a result of that rewiring?
Yeah. So, well, a lot of things can happen. I'm going to do another little metaphor here. So I grew up about 30 miles east of Houston in a community called Mont Bellevue. And so north of Houston, there's an area called the Woodlands. And used to, if you wanted to go from Mont Bellevue to the Woodlands, it's like you had to drive almost all the way into Houston and then go north, maybe take 610 around. Well, now they put in this new loop. It's Loop 99. It's the third loop out from Houston, and it runs right through Mont Bellevue, and it takes you right up to Woodlands. And what used to be, an hour and 15-minute trip is now like a 40-minute trip, something like that. Okay. When I establish a new pathway, I I have new options in terms of both how I get where I'm going, but also what I see along the way. So think about it. If my patterns of thinking have been very entrenched, then sort of by default, all of my brainstorming and creativity and all of this is sort of bound up within that system that is well established. When I put in the effort to create some new routes, some new pathways, what I'm doing is I'm creating the potential to see things from a different perspective, to incorporate knowledge that I would have not been aware of because I wouldn't have been open to it.
Mm.
New perspectives. And I talked about, beliefs, thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. The beliefs thing is really important because that's really the subconscious, it's not necessarily explicitly happening in our minds, but more implicitly, these beliefs about ourself and the world and how it all works. Are people generally good or bad? Am I good or bad? All of that. When we can begin to build out more options for how we believe about the world around us, that is going to have a cascading effect in terms of than what we think, feel, and do.
Here's where you just really, I think, solidified some great uh, nuggets of truth, universal laws that I use to propel my own life in all these categories that we're talking about. You said that when you create the new path, it unlocks new experiences.
Yes.
And when I hear that, what I really hear you saying is it may unlock the pathway for more joy,
Yeah.
for more
Oh,
happiness.
yeah.
Like when it becomes easier, when it becomes more rooted,
Yeah.
then I'm happier. I experience
Yeah.
life at a higher level, a higher frequency. Is
Right.
that true?
That's absolutely true. Can I tell a really embarrassing story about myself
Yeah, I
to
think people would
illustrate
love
that?
that.
Yeah. So, um, I used to really struggle with social anxiety. I mean, to the point that when I was in high school, I was actually medicated for social anxiety. And I went to college in upstate New York, so You know, Texas boy, way up there, upstate New York, didn't know anybody. I'm on freshman dorm on my floor. And we had a community bathroom set up. Okay.
Uh-oh.
So I'm at one end of the hallway and I'm like, okay, it's my first day and I'm going to walk down to see the bathroom situation. And I go and there's a door and it's clearly marked and I walk in. There are like 4 shower stalls and there's one toilet. And the toilet isn't even in a stall. It's got like a curtain and you can't even really pull the curtain all the way around you. And the one sink in the whole room is right next to the toilet. And I'm going, this is a terrible setup. I cannot believe I'm paying what I'm paying for this and that I'm going to live this way with 30 guys for a
Sure.
year. But I go, okay, but this is it. This is what we're doing. Everybody, this is just the situation. So, the first few days, I'm just doing my business, right? One day, my RA kind of hollers at me down the hall to come down to his room for something. This was the furthest I was going to make my way down the hallway. I had not gone past the bathroom in the hallway. So I have to go past the bathroom. I go past the bathroom. His room's, another 3-4 doors on the right. But right across from his room is another door.
Wow.
And it's also marked for the restroom. And I open up and it's all of these toilets in stalls. And that's when I found out I had gotten the reputation as that weird kid from Texas using the handicap toilet in the shower room.
Wow.
So it's kind of silly, but when I don't push myself to go beyond what I'm comfortable with, I don't even know what I'm missing out on. I don't even know what limitations I am self-imposing because I can't even imagine necessarily what's past my own experience.
Man, that is so big. I love it. I circled the word as I was taking notes before you gave that story that the new experience also creates new knowledge
Yes.
that you may not have had prior to that. And that's exactly what you just underscored, which then goes back to the story that I'm kind of fascinated with right now. It's sort of a metaphor that Steve Jobs said in a speech about connecting dots. You can't connect dots looking forward. You can only connect dots looking backwards. So go forth and be a collector of dots. But that's easier said than done when we have to have courage and we have social anxiety or we have limiting beliefs or we're rooted in the memories of our past or the programming or our current or old outdated identity that doesn't let us dream and then go out and take risk and put ourselves right beyond that door of the handicapped bathroom to get to the other side.
Right.
And so from a neurobiology standpoint, I guess, what do we do? What's the first step? If we're in
Yeah.
this group, we're hard charging and we're experiencing some success, but there's something there's some kind of blockage,
Right.
right? We've been here for too long and it's time
Yeah.
to what is step one? What do we do?
So I think step one is I call this the who first principle. The who first principle, which when I'm introducing this with couples, they often think I mean like, okay, well, who's going to go first? Who's going to take the step or change first or whatever? That's not what I mean. What I mean is that we often our minds automatically start with the question of what do I need to do? What do I need to do here? Right? That is the wrong first question. The first question needs to be, who do I want to be here? Who do I want to be? What kind of person do I want to be? And be specific to that context. What kind of husband do I want to be? What kind of father do I want to be? What kind of employer do I want to be? What kind of neighbor do I want to be? Whatever the context calls for, get specific. What kind of person do I want to be here? Get clear on that. And this is where values are so important and some people have probably done tons of value work and values work, and some people maybe haven't, but I really leverage the power of core values. I think knowing like your top 4 core values, being able to just rattle them off. Mine are courage, kindness, humility, and joy. That's it. So what that allows me to do is when I'm in a situation, I mean, this happened this morning. My wife, I get out of the shower, my wife's sitting on bed, laptop open, and she goes, "Oh God, we got an email from," fill in the blank, someone's name. I said, "Oh, there's a business thing we're going through right now. He wants to meet." And I my initial thought wasn't, do what I mean, how do I do it, what the strategy be? It's courage, kindness, humility, joy. We're going to take the meeting. We'll make it work. We'll figure it out. Say yes, right? What that allows is that allows me to have my bearings in terms of the trajectory of my own development. This is really important. This is really
So I
important.
need you to say that one more time before
Yeah,
you move on.
it
It allows
allows
you to.
me to really have my bearings, understand my bearings in terms of the trajectory of my own development. Okay, every single time we believe, think, feel, or do something, because neurons that fire together wire together, because in believing, thinking, feeling, or doing that thing, we're more likely to believe, think, feel, or do that thing again in the future, unless something traumatic happens. And then the brain's like, never again. But that's a very small percentage of the time. Most of the time, what's happening is that is having a formative effect on me. I mean, in my work as a psychotherapist, one of the things I hear all the time from like people in recovery when they talk about when they were active in addiction was this cognitive distortion of one time won't matter. One time won't matter. Well, yes, it will, because whatever I do is literally having a formative effect on my brain, on my nervous system. It is establishing that as a pattern for me. Okay. So that's the trajectory of my development. Okay. So why are values so important when it comes to my own development? Imagine if I'm just haphazard deciding what to do aimlessly, not connected to something that's fixed. If I'm letting my feelings, if I'm letting the situation determine how I respond, I'm kind of wandering all around, and who am I becoming? It's kind of haphazard in terms of me taking ownership of my own development. But when I can say, no matter what I do, I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna strive to act with courage, kindness, humility, and joy. I am now harnessing the collective power of every small choice to push myself in one direction. And it's in the direction of becoming that person, a person of courage, kindness, humility, and joy. Okay? So knowing my values and then acting on them is me taking a long walk in the same direction rather than just kind of a step here, a step there, 2 steps back that way, a quarter turn to the right, you know.
Man, that's good. I can't write fast enough. This is so awesome. Hey guys, if you've been a listener of my show for any length of time, you know that I attribute a lot of my growth to learning from the guys inside of GoBundance. If you think that GoBundance is a tribe that you might be interested in joining, then reach out to me. Go to WyattGraves.com, connect with me. I'll reach out personally with you and answer any questions about GoBundance to see if it's the right fit for you. Core values are important because they allow you to anchor yourself in which you make decisions, and that allows you to harness the collective power of the benefits of hardwiring
That's
these
right.
trails.
That's right.
Right? That's so it provides a North Star.
That's yes.
That is so freaking awesome. I love it. So
We've got a question.
Okay, I have a question.
oh, go ahead. Yes, let's ask a question.
I have had my most challenging person in real estate in 5 years. And I ended up with an ex-wife and an ex-husband, and I got so emotionally attached
Oh boy.
And I try to be very centered on myself. But my husband and I literally just got back from Jamaica at 2:30 this morning.
Oh,
So I'm very centered with myself. I'm very centered with my husband. And
nice.
I'm looking back on this relationship and this 9 months of a challenge. And I love her to death. I love her to death. But how do I keep myself centered,
Mm,
getting emotionally attached? Which I love. And that's something about myself that I love, that I can get emotionally attached. I can love that person and let go. But this
yeah.
particular person, I have not. And I got a phone call at 10:30 at night in Miami. And I'm there for them. I'm there for them. But how do I, and I'm listening to everything that you're saying. It's amazing. It is amazing. And I feel that with my relationship with my husband. But how do I keep myself from getting so emotionally attached that it drains me?
Yeah.
It drains me physically and emotionally. How do
Right.
I set that boundary?
Well, okay. You said the magic word there of boundaries. There are two kinds of boundaries. Okay. There are protective boundaries. This is my responsibility to protect myself from you. Protective boundaries. And there are containment boundaries. My responsibility to protect you from me. Okay. And we need both. Now, here's what helps me with that, because I make up that I've had that struggle as well. I used to be a pastor. I mean, my gosh, I'm a therapist. I pour myself into my clients, all of this, okay? And I can get all wrapped up in it. I am doing no one any favors, right? When I cross that line from support to enabling, right? Okay? And that's going to require both sets of boundaries. It's not just about me protecting myself from them and the energy suck that can come from the relationship, but I have to protect them from the detrimental effects of my enabling, because my enabling keeps that person from growing up, from sensing their own agency, right? Their own maturity, their own, ability to do it. I mentioned just a second ago that I used to be a pastor. If it's okay, I want to pull a Bible verse that actually helped me discern this. And even if you're not a person of faith, I think that this concept is still really helpful. In Galatians 6, there's this verse that says, "Carry one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ." Bear one another's burdens. Okay, so it's like, okay, so I'm supposed to do this, right? But then like 2 verses later, it says, each one must carry his own load. What? Wait, what am I supposed to do here? Am I supposed to bear burdens or let someone carry their own load? Well, if you go back and look at the Greek there, this is terminology that was used around shipping cargo, okay? And a burden was like a whole pallet of cargo that required a team of people to lift it on or off of a ship, okay? A load was a pack designed for one person to carry, all right? I have to discern, is this a burden or a load? Is this a burden or a load? And if I'm not discerning that and I'm helping people with their loads, I'm not giving them the opportunity to develop that same discernment as well. And to develop their own capacity as well. I had a colleague, single woman. My wife and I are very close to her. We love her. My kids call her Aunt so-and-so. But she got into this thing where she was calling me to like do all this stuff for her. And the line was when she bought a new Mac and wanted me to come over and set it up for her. And I said, it's a Mac. You literally like plug it in, turn it on. It's going to ask you for your Apple ID and that's it. Like, and no, I can't. I don't know how to do it. You can do it. It was a hard no. That was a turning point in our relationship. So for me, to get back to your question directly, I need to have my own sense of my own protective and containment boundaries. I need to understand this isn't just for my protection, but for the other person's development as well. And then I've got to do the work of discerning burden or load here, right? Because I want to stay out of the black and white thinking of I'm going to cut the person off or it's going to continue just as things are now, because that's probably not the solution. Hopefully there was something helpful in there for you.
Yes, it was. It was very helpful. It was very helpful. Thank you.
Anybody else got a question? I've got one more that I want to go back and close the loop on with something that we've talked about, but we're certainly open for other questions. Just let us know. All right. So, Jake, this is what I want to go back to. I want to go back to the metaphor of the trail.
Okay.
And rewiring, because I think there's gold in that. I mean, I have practiced that. This whole idea of neuroplasticity, I learned about it like 7 years ago, and I've leaned into that. And so what hit me, though, when you were talking about it earlier, you said, and I can't read some of my writing, but identity, effort, and focus, identify, maybe?
Intentionality, effort, and focus.
Yes. Intentionality, effort, and focus.
Yes.
I can break with intentionality, effort, and focus. Because this is where my mind was. Let me reframe it this way.
Okay.
I'm very clear on who I want to become.
Right.
Like I may spend too much time in the future version of myself.
Right.
I wonder that sometimes about me. I'm very future oriented. Okay. And so when I heard this phrase, and I've heard it for many years, right? With intentionality, effort, and focus, I can become that person, right?
Right.
But what occurred to me today in this call is that those old patterns, like who I am today, are a result of the old trails and the old intentionality, the old effort, and the old focus.
That's right.
Which were also heavily influenced by external experiences from a younger version of myself who wasn't as trained or cognitively aware of the right ways to program myself. So like the effort and the intentionality has got to be, I don't know, in my mind, it's like, it's got to be strong to override the old.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Yes. So you're highlighting what I call the cloud of struggle. Okay. Doesn't that sound like fun? The cloud of struggle. But this is a really important part of the process of change, of neuroplasticity, to understand and be ready for if you're going to undergo this. So intention, effort, and focus, you know what that actually feels like experientially? It feels like hard work. Okay. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be hard work you're not enjoying, but it's going to feel like hard work. Okay. And there are certain neurochemicals that are prominent when we're in that space of intention, effort, and focus. One of them is norepinephrine. Norepinephrine is what gives us that sort of like blinders on. I know my goal. I know where I'm headed, and I'm driving towards it. Okay. Norepinephrine is really important, like for long distance runners. I ran my first and probably my last, if I'm being honest, half marathon in January this year. I've lost 70 pounds in the last 2 years.
Wow.
Thank you. And never thought I would do something like run a half marathon. And I did this. And you know, runners talk about hitting the wall. Well, the wall is when you've been in this cloud of struggle. This is hard, but you know, and you're focusing, you're driving toward this goal. But here's the thing. Your brain can only handle so much norepinephrine at a time before it becomes neurotoxic. So when runners hit the wall and it's like their legs just stop working, it's because they've hit the ceiling of how much norepinephrine they can take. But it doesn't have to be something physical. Like if you're working on something in your profession and you're driving at it, and then you're like, that's it. I can't do anymore. Okay. That's the cloud of struggle that you've been in, and you've been driving toward this goal. Okay. 2 things. Number 1 is we have to get to a place of understanding that the experience of struggle is not evidence that things are going poorly, but that we're on the right track. That feeling of struggle is evidence that our brain is in the state in which the change can begin to happen. No change comes easily. Okay? So what happens is in our society, in our culture, and I will try not to mount too big of a soapbox here, but our society is wired for comfort. So when something is uncomfortable, what do? Well, it's not going right. I must be doing something wrong, or this isn't the right thing for me because it feels uncomfortable. Okay? What I teach my clients is when it's hard, if it's hard because you're acting on your values, this is what you say. This is hard, but I'm doing it. This is hard, but I'm becoming the man I want to be. This is hard, but I'm accomplishing that goal of XYZ, ABC, whatever it is. Okay. So now here's why that's important. Here's the second thing to understand about the cloud of struggle. So the first thing to understand is it's evidence that you're on the right track, not evidence you're on the wrong track. Okay. Here's the second thing that's important to understand. That ceiling can be delayed. Hitting that ceiling where we hit the wall can be delayed. Dopamine counteracts norepinephrine. So if I can have little hits of dopamine, it will offset the norepinephrine and delay me hitting that ceiling of how much my brain can handle. And guess what powerfully produces dopamine? The thought, this is hard, but I'm doing it. This is hard, but I'm becoming the person I want to be. I'm reaching my goal. I'm going to make it. Right? This is why that last 2 miles of that half marathon, I wasn't thinking about the finish line. I was going, I just need to make it to the end of this block. Okay, I made it to the end of the block. Okay, I can see there's a big patch of trees up there. I'm going to make it to that patch of trees. Okay, I made it to the trees. Every time I hit that little goal and I acknowledge it to myself, I call that the internal attaboy. The dopamine is offsetting the norepinephrine and delaying me hitting the ceiling, therefore extending the time I have. And that's the neurobiology of endurance or perseverance. Okay. So what that means is we have to cultivate within us the practice of the internal attaboy. This is hard, but I'm doing it.
This is like mic drop material to me, but I'm obsessed with this, guys, ladies. Is this wild to y'all?
Yes.
This is so incredible. The experience of struggle is not evidence that you're doing it wrong. It's actually evidence that you're doing it the right way. And the words that came to mind in that is imposter syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
So inside of even GoBundance, there are several people that are maybe new and maybe in a certain net worth, because we talk about that, right? And so they feel like they have imposter syndrome when they get in the room and right? But like what I have come to learn is that imposter syndrome is actually a reward. It's actually a good thing. We just have to frame it as that because it's evidence that we're being courageous.
That's right.
It's evidence that we're acting from a bigger vision of a powerful future than who we were of the past. Without imposter syndrome, you're not growing. Without imposter syndrome, if you're not growing, you're dying.
That's right. Imposter syndrome comes upon me because I've entered a new room, right? It's a new room with new people. And you know, what a lot of people do is they let the fear... They think about, well, man, there's so many directions you could go from here, but let me put it this way. Let's go back to the cutting a trail. Well, there's effort involved, right? And I've got to push through that. And that is exactly what's happening. Yeah, when I got into GoBundance, I had big time imposter syndrome. I still have imposter syndrome, but you're right. Reframing it, what that is telling me is I've just entered a new room. Okay, that's all. It's a new room. And we humans are fundamentally wired for relationship. Okay. So when I enter the new room with the new crowd, my right brain limbic system automatically and non consciously is scanning every face, listening for tones of voice, facial expression, posture. Do I fit here? Do I fit here? Do I fit here? Because we are such fundamentally social creatures. The moment I build relationships and I fit there, I'm settled. But now I have a new set of relationships. And remember where we started this whole conversation. Your individual development is connected to your relational experiences. You cannot separate them. So if I don't keep entering new rooms and building new relationships, I limit my own growth and development.
This is so good. God, dog, it's so good. I just love it. And I love it because I am goal oriented. I have big dreams. And what you're telling me is scientific proof that it's possible,
Yeah.
right? You have outlined the formula to level up without hesitation. And so, whatever belief I may hold, whatever fear I may have around stepping into I mean, look, I am submitting. This is transparent truth right here to you and everybody that's on the call. I have more bankers in my life right now than I have ever had. Right? Like this banker, great relationship. This banker, great relationship. Know them, we got deals with them. And I am presenting a new portfolio, a new purchase to these bankers. I have drugged my feet for a week with submitting the package to them because of this fear that it won't work, that they may not give me the loan, that I may have missed a deal, right? Like something may go wrong. It's still there. I was thinking about it this morning as I literally doing hard work. I don't understand why it's hard. I'm psychoanalyzing myself. Why is this hard? What's the hesitation about? What's the procrastination about? Right? We've got it all buttoned up. I've leveraged ChatGPT for the executive summary, right? It's beautiful. I'm wondering if these bankers have ever had a package yet that had somebody use ChatGPT because it's all brand new and it's still there.
Yeah.
I'm still going to do it, right? And I'm taking stock of the way that I feel moving into this new territory with these new buildings and this new portfolio, so that I can compare it to once we get it, because I know we're going to get it, right? And so I want to be able to look back and say, I felt that feeling, I did it anyway, and look how it turned out, right? So I'm super aware of that, but it's just crazy. Like, this is the formula. We've got it. Everybody that's in this room, right? We talk about our money machine, and we talk about the investments as a byproduct, right? We take our discretionary income with our time and we go invest it into real estate or business so that we can grow our wealth while we're maintaining our money machine. And there's always these things that we say yes to that are things that we should really not say yes to. But why are we saying yes to them and not these other things? And it's the patterns of behavior that we're rooted in.
That's right. That's right. Can I share my screen for a second?
You sure can. Will it allow you, or do I need?
I'm happy. Yeah, it's allowing me, and I'm happy to send this to you, and you can share it with others. But this is capturing everything I've been talking about, and it actually captures what you just outlined, Wyatt, that you're going through right now. There's really these two modes of being. I call it orange cycle and blue cycle. The orange cycle, this is being stuck in the past. That's why it's called why it's described here as being trapped in regressive reinforcement. I'm literally reinforcing these old ways. And so what happens is something happens, or I think something's going to happen that is a relational rupture. And because we are so wired for connection, we can't tolerate that. So even if it's bankers, and I think the bankers will reject me, right? I'm anticipating that. I launch into this orange cycle. I automatically start to focus on protecting myself, and I protect myself by activating these old scripts. Sorry about that. These old scripts of patterns of believing, thinking, feeling, and doing, which once activated, I passively conform and act on those. And what happens is then I begin to interpret things through a lens of confirmation bias. See, I knew that would happen. See, I knew that was going to work, go that way. See, there it is. I called it. I knew it. And when I have that thought, guess what that thought gives me in my head? Dopamine. Dopamine is the do it again neurotransmitter. It's about learning. And so those thoughts, see, I knew it would happen. There it is. I called it. I knew they were going to say this or that or whatever, are actually reinforcing the neural pathways associated with the old script. Meanwhile, at the same time, I either get distance or dependence in the relationship, and that also provides temporary relief. So Wyatt, if I can use the example you just gave of for a week, you've had it and you haven't handed over, you're creating distance, and that distance is giving you temporary relief from, oh gosh, will they reject me? But see, if you were to stay in this cycle, it's worse than being stuck. It's worse than being stuck because you're becoming more of this person. You're reinforcing it. You're strengthening it even more. Stuck is an illusion. Feeling stuck is real. Being stuck is an illusion because we are always moving through time. We are always becoming more or less of something or another. Okay? So the way out is I recognize the threat, and instead I focus on, here it says relational protection because this is really designed for working with couples, this particular thing, but think of it this way. It's a larger vision. This isn't just about my ego. There's more going on here. So because of that, I'm going to activate my values, the who first principle, entering into this cloud of struggle. That's what all these splotches are: intention, effort, focus, effort, focus, effort, focus. I make an active choice to embody my values. When I do that, I feel integrity. And I get to say, this is hard, but I'm doing it. There's the internal attaboy, which literally reinforces the neural pathways associated with my values. And I get, this says intimacy, but apply that to different relationships. It doesn't have to be intimacy. It's connection. It's knowing and being known. And this actually leads to forward development, me owning my own trajectory for who I am and am becoming. That was a really, really fast explanation of this, but this is everything we've been talking about.
I think it's fantastic, man. This is just blows my mind. I just love all of it. I want to ask you about, because you used the word trigger and cue, and this is for one of our agents and members of Ascend and somebody that's been in my world for a long time. We have been talking about the word trigger a lot. And in relationships and situations. And I have proposed that when I'm triggered, it's really something it's a somebody or an event that's rubbing up against an old wound that I have, that maybe like a splinter that's been scabbed over, and I don't really know it's there. It's kind of healed over. It doesn't bother me unless somebody rubs up against it.
Right.
And so then all of a sudden, and so my natural tendency is to place blame on that person. You are the problem, right? You did this, you did that, but really it's them serving as a trigger of my own splinter. And so until I do the internal work to remove the splinter, whether it's them or anybody else that rubs up against it, I'm going to place blame on them. The work is, so can you talk about that relative to that chart?
Absolutely. So you're exactly right. A trigger is, the neurobiology of a trigger is where the memory network is dissociated between right brain and left brain, and the right brain memory gets activated without it being integrated to the left. Here's what that means. Left is where we have conscious, like, I know where this fits in my life. I know I've got autobiographical memory and then a sense of time. I know that's from the past. Right brain is right here, right now, and eternal present and body-based. And sometimes memories don't get integrated across left and right. And a trigger happens where the right brain memory network has been activated without the corresponding left brain network, which would anchor it in time in the past, which would right-size my response to it. So what happens is this threat, this memory of a threat is activated, but only in the body-based, timeless part of my brain. So instead of remembering, I actually am reliving in that moment. Okay. That's what's actually happening with a trigger. What we want to do, and that's why I say trigger versus cue. If I can get awareness, if I can teach myself to become aware, what are the thoughts that enter my head when I'm triggered? What's the feeling in my body when I'm triggered? If I can gain just a little bit of awareness, what I can do is I can leverage that to not be a trigger meaning it launches me into this automated response, but it can become a cue to intentionally set me up to choose something different. Now I know I'm in this situation. The way I heal this now is by choosing something different right here, right now. And that takes you right back into that cycle. My values, making active choices. Yep.
And that's why you had the word trigger next to the word cue. So trigger sends you to the orange, cue sends you to the blue.
That's right.
Because you can use that as fuel to become more of who you want to become.
That's exactly right.
Because of the awareness of the trigger or reframing it as a cue.
That's right. And this goes back to the discomfort thing. If it's a trigger, I'm going to react in the way that the most primal part of my brain thinks will bring me relief the fastest. It's about escaping discomfort. Versus a cue, I might choose to endure the discomfort for something greater. And that's the only way healing, growth, transformation happens.
Man, this has been so good. I want to end with this formula that I kind of created after all the conferences, coaching sessions, therapy sessions, books, podcasts. Like the fastest way to change your trajectory is to change your inner circle. That's something that I think exists, right? Why is that the case? Well, the people provide conversations, right? They provide you with empathy to encourage, if they're the right people, they encourage the true self to live in reality, right? To come out from behind your ego. Then you design your environment to support the behaviors that you want to turn into habits. And so it's people and the physical environment. When you get clear of who you want to become, what kind of dad, what kind of husband, what kind of wife, what kind of mom, what kind of business owner, what kind of employee, what kind of real estate agent, what kind of investor. When you get clear on who you want to become and start to discern those values, then you get around people that encourage you to live out those values. You design your environment to support those behaviors, the cues, if you will, right? You want to write thank you cards, put them on your desk. You want to talk to people, right? Put a phone next, right? If you want to, you design your environment, and then to 10x all that, you amplify it with the community.
That's exactly right.
So I need you to kind of validate me. Am I on target?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're on target. You're going to change. We're all going to change. No one here will be the same person they were 10 years from now. But what you just outlined is a plan for harnessing that change and being intentional about my change. That's why I talk about the developmental trajectory, right? That I want to know how to set the aim of my trajectory of my own development. And yeah, those are relationships, environment, and the choices I make inside of those. That's how that happens. Yeah.
So good. So good. I'm aware of time, Jake. I want to offer any last comments or questions. If there's maybe one question in the group, if not, we're going to wrap it up. All right. Without a question, what I would like for you to do, if you're on and can come off of mute, if you had an aha or just an appreciation for Dr. Jake, let's give him some appreciation and share with him the gift that he just gave us.
Are we muted?
Now you're not.
Okay. So my aha was my question, obviously. So like I've been struggling, and like you gave me that aha moment of setting those boundaries, protecting myself, but still forming that relationship with my client, but in the same sense, protecting me emotionally from being over involved.
Good.
Very
Beautiful.
aha moment on, I want to reach out to you personally, to be honest with you. You had a lot of great insight, a lot of great insight, a lot of great insight. It's just, I've struggled with that boundary, and like you gave me some insight to help me with the next client that is oversteps, so that I can protect myself and not get so emotionally drained. You gave me that foresight.
Wow. Thank you. That's wonderful to hear. Appreciate that.
And Jake, while we're pausing for somebody else to come on, where can people find out more about you? How do they get connected with you?
I have a website, drjakeporter.com. You can email me, jake@daringventures.com. Yeah, pretty easy to get
Okay,
a hold
good.
of in those ways.
Anybody else with last minute appreciation for Dr. Jake?
I'll go. So I had two things that I appreciated hearing from you today. One was not answering the question of how, but answering the question of who is it that we want to become. We really have to get that clarity so that we can take, the right path and start making that path the worn path. The other thing was, it's not about deciding or it's not about figuring out who we are. It's about deciding who we are.
Yeah,
We can make those decisions. You can be whoever you want to be. It's your choice today.
that's right.
That
Thank
was
you.
good. That
So
was
thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
All right, man, this has been awesome. I'm going to also follow up with you. I'm going to ask about a pod. I'm on the hunt for a new pod, so we're going to talk about that. And it would be so awesome to have you at a mastermind event for us, right? We
Sure.
put on one 2 years ago, and we've got another one that's on the books. We're just zeroing in on the dates. And we're not hearing enough of you inside of GoBundance, my world. This has been fantastic. I'm so, so grateful that I saw that post. You obliged, and here we are, man. This is really, really fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for reaching out, Wyatt. Appreciate all of you and your time. And yeah, it's fun.
Hey guys, Wyatt Graves here. As you know from previous episodes of this show, I'm on a mission to grow a business that has 25,000 doors, a holding company of service-based businesses surrounded by a protective moat of a personal growth and development educational company. With that being said, I am looking for deals, I'm looking for talent, and I'm looking for capital. If you're interested in connecting with me, go to my website, wyattgraves.com. Send us a deal. I will be sure to include you in some way, shape, or form. Whether you're a real estate agent and you want to be my agent, you're welcome to be my agent if you bring the deal to me. If you're not my agent and you bring the deal to me, we will still get you paid somehow, some way. If you want to work inside of our world, then drop me a line, send me an email, connect with me. We're interested in attracting level 5 talent. And then finally, if you are an investor and want to invest your money, not only to get double-digit returns, but also to have real impact inside of the communities as we raise up the level of good life living throughout our properties with our residents, with our employees, with our communities, then I want to connect with you. Go to wyattgraves.com and fill out the contact information, and I will personally be in touch with you so that we can figure out how we can shake the trees together and win together. wyattgraves.com.